Okay. So again, good morning. I am Dr. Marie Meads Isidro Borlasa. So my topic for today is on the upper respiratory tract. Okay, so we will be talking about the histology of the respiratory tract, particularly the conducting portion or the upper respiratory tract. Okay, so Dr. Matthews already discussed about the lower respiratory tract. So at the end of this lecture, we will be talking about the nasal cavity, the paranasal sinuses and its components, the nasopharynx and its components, the larynx, the trachea, and of course, I'll be inserting some clinical correlations with regards to the upper respiratory tract. Okay, so also included in this upper respiratory tract or conducting portions are your bronchi and bronchioles. But these structures were already discussed by Dr. Matthews. Okay, so the respiratory system, as we all know, provides oxygen and carbon dioxide to and from the blood. So the exchange of gases primarily as a function of your alveoli. Okay, so my task is just to talk about this. Of course, before we before we inhale or before we get air from the outside going into the lungs, okay, dapat syempre without impurities or without any particulates coming from the external environment. So it should be a function of the conducting portion. And what are your conducting portion? Okay, the conducting portion of the respiratory system will include your nasal cavities, the nasopharynx, the larynx, the trachea, the bronchi, the bronchioles, and the terminal bronchioles. Okay, so the function of this conducting portion is, of course, to condition the air and then also to be able to adjust the temperature and humidity, also as for purification and cleansing. Okay, we all know that we have hairs in our nose. So one function of that is to be able to trap dust particles or pollens so as that it will not go inside our lungs. Okay, so also has been discussed by Dr. Matthews, we also have the respiratory portion, where the system's main function of gas exchange occurs. Okay? So, to ensure an uninterrupted supply of air, so kailangan yung kanilang wall should be a combination of cartilage. That would be elastic and hyaline cartilages. Also, it has to have its collagen fibers and of course, smooth muscles to be able to provide the conducting portion with rigid for structural support. Okay, para it also needs to flex and extend. Okay, so it has to have those type of um, components. Also, it is composed of 3 layers. Okay, we have the mucosa, which will cover the luminal surface and consists mostly of pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium with mucous goblet cells and thin lamina propria. Okay, so in short, we call them also the respiratory epithelium. It also contains, like what I've mentioned a while ago, fibrocartilaginous layer, okay, which will support the walls, composed primarily of your hyaline and elastic cartilages. And lastly, of course, it contains your tunica adventitia, which are actually loose connective tissues with blood vessels and nerve bundles. Okay, so we will be talking about these structures, the nasal cavity, the nasopharynx, the larynx, and the trachea. Also, we are going to talk about the epiglottis because this epiglottis has a very important function. Okay, so let's start off with the nasal cavity. Okay, there are two cavities, of course, the left and the right nasal cavity. Okay, so from the external, meaning from the skin, from a keratinized epithelium, it will insert into the nares. Okay, the nares will then divide to become your dilated vestibule and internal nasal cavity. So from a keratinized epithelium, it will insert into the nares, if you can see the moving arrow. Okay, so from here, from the nose, and then into the nares, so from a keratinized into this portion, okay, to the vestibule. Okay, so this vestibule will eventually be divided into 3 portions, and that cumulative 3 portions is actually called your turbinates. Okay, but before we go to the turbinates, of course, the nasal cavity also contains your sweat glands, your sebaceous glands, and like what I've mentioned, the hairs or the vibrissae, which actually filters out particulate material from the inspired air. Okay, so within the vestibule, the epithelium will lose its keratinite nature and will undergo a transition to your typical respiratory epithelium. So when I say respiratory epithelium, it means a pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Okay, particular attention also to this septum, which is a thin wall made of cartilage and bones, which divides the inside of the nose into tooth chambers. Also paying particular attention to the sinuses, which are hollow and air-filled chambers in the bones around your nose. Okay, so it is where your mucus drains into the nasal cavity. Okay, so these are the structures of your nasal cavity, the septum, the turbinates, the sinuses, and of course, the mucous membrane. Okay, so another picture will show you the sagittal and coronal section, okay, of the head. Okay, so I want you to pay particular attention to the olfactory area as highlighted and the respiratory area. Okay, so from the nares to the vestibule to the turbinates, as I have mentioned, which is divided into inferior, middle, and your superior. Okay, the olfactory area is actually at the level of your superior turbinates. Okay, so doon lang mag-iiba ang ating lining epithelium. So from a respiratory epithelium to an olfactory epithelium eventually. Okay, so again, another picture of your different turbinates. The inferior, the middle, and the superior turbinate. What I want you to pay particular attention to in this slide is this one, the bone. Okay, this is the ethmoid bone. And into the ethmoid bone will be the axons of your superior or your olfactory neurons, which is located at the superior turbinate for your sense of smell. Okay, so we will learn that in a little while. Okay, another section, this time microscopically, of your nasal septum and the turbinates or your concave. Okay, so again, you have here the nasal septum, the inferior concave, the nasal cavity, and the hard palate. Okay, for easy identification. Okay, so let's talk about the different cells contained in your respiratory epithelium. Like what I mentioned, when I say respiratory epithelium, it is your ciliated, pseudostratified columnar epithelium with goblet cells. So what would be the 5 cell types contained in this respiratory epithelium? Okay, it contains your ciliated columnar cells, your goblet cells, your brush cells, your small granule cells or your Golitsky cells, and your basal cells. Of course, it has its own functions per cell. Let's talk about the ciliated columnar cells first. It is ciliated because it's very important to be able to trap your particulate matter coming from the external environment. Okay, so it is located at the apical portion of the lining epithelium, as you can see here. It is the most abundant. Okay, it contains about 250 to 200 cilia on the apical surface of our respiratory epithelium. Another cell are the goblet cells. These are actually columnar cells filled with granules of mucin glycoproteins. Okay, so what is the function of these goblet cells? Okay, these goblet cells, because of its mucin glycoproteins, will produce mucus secretion. Okay, that's the reason why sometimes we have watery nose. Okay, sometimes it's dry, depending on the production of these goblet cells. Okay, on to the next, we have the brush cells. The brush cells, as compared to your ciliated cells, are the less numerous. Okay, so columnar cell type din siya. Okay, with its small apical surface containing a blunt microvilli. Okay, so this blunt microvilli are like your chemosensory receptors. Okay, so it has the same signal transduction components and synaptic contact with afferent nerve endings on the basal cell surface. So this is also the reason why whenever there are irritants, we tend to sneeze because of these brush cells. Because again, these are chemosensory receptors. Okay, next we have our small granule cells or called Chiski cells. Okay, so this one, difficult siya to distinguish in a typical routine preparations. Okay, so ang particular function niya, it is part of the diffuse neuroendocrine system. So konti lang din siya, okay, in the lining epithelium. Next, we have the basal cells. So basal cells are mitotically active stem and progenitor cells that gives rise to other epithelial cell types. Okay, so these are your cells contained in the respiratory epithelium. The respiratory epithelium lines your mostly of your your respiratory tract. Okay, but particular attention to the turbinates since it's our topic, the nasal cavity. It lines the middle and the inferior turbinates. Okay, what lines the superior turbinates is actually the olfactory epithelium. Okay, am I still good, class? Because nag-unstable. Class? Class, can you hear me? Class? Hello?
Doc, choppy po yung sa part ng basal cells, Doc.
Okay. Sige, sorry ha. I will cut it. Okay, sige. So the basal cells, I will repeat since nawala ako, okay, are mitotically active stem and progenitor cells. So it just gives rise to other epithelial cell types. Okay, yun yung function niya. So those are the cells contained in your respiratory epithelium. Okay, the respiratory epithelium lines the middle and inferior turbinates, particularly to the nasal cavity, but actually almost all of the respiratory tract. Okay, what's different is the olfactory epithelium, which is lining the olfactory region, as you can see here. Okay, so the olfactory epithelium, like what I've mentioned, is responsible for your sense of smell. Okay, it is a specialized region of the mucous membrane covering the superior conchae at the roof of the nasal cavity. Okay, so it is thick, containing, of course, your pseudostratified columnar epithelium with three major cell types. Okay, and what are those major cell types? We have your olfactory neurons, your supporting cells, and the basal cells. Okay, so looking at the picture of the olfactory epithelium, as you can see here, okay, it contains your olfactory bipolar neurons, which are actually present throughout the epithelium. Okay, so when you look at it, their nucleus or the nuclei form an irregular row near the middle of this thick epithelium. The apical portion or the luminal pole of each olfactory cells has a dendrite, okay, as you can see in this one, and a knob-like swelling with dozen of basal bodies. Okay, so from the basal bodies, it will emerge to form an axon or the axonemes, which are actually long cilia with which are non-motile. Okay, and then like what I've said, it will insert into the cribriform plate to become eventually your olfactory nerve, okay, for your sense of smell. So this is very important for the sense of smell. Okay. So again, the olfactory neurons, as what I have mentioned, and as you have seen in the picture a while ago. Okay, so it will form the olfactory nerve, the cranial nerve 1, and eventually will sign up with other neurons in the olfactory bulb. Okay. Next, we have your supporting cells. So these supporting cells are like your supporting cells in the respiratory epithelium, columnar, okay, with broad cylindrical apices containing the nuclei and narrower bases. So particular for this type of cell is that the microvilli are submerged into a fluid layer. Okay, so this is very important so that there is a continuous flow of fluid within the nasal cavity. Okay, so that new sets of odoriferous substances can also be detected. Okay, because of this constant flow of fluid surrounding the olfactory cilia. Okay. And lastly, for our olfactory epithelium or the basal cells, like your respiratory epithelium. Okay, the function of which is again to replace the olfactory neurons at least every 2 to 3 months. Okay, so those are your three basal cell types. Another important structure for your olfactory epithelium are the presence of your olfactory glands of Bowman, which are located at the lamina propria. Okay, so it produces a constant flow of fluid surrounding the olfactory cilia and will also facilitate the access of new odoriferous substances. Okay, so this one will be the lining epithelium, which is pseudostratified columnar, and then in the lamina propria will contain your Bowman's gland. Okay, another cross section of the bone, which is very important for you to pay attention to, will be the olfactory layer at this area. Okay, the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone, okay, inserting into the cribriform plate the olfactory nerve fibers, okay, to eventually go to the olfactory bulb. Okay, so what would be the clinical correlations with regards to our nasal cavity particularly? Okay, that would be either the loss or reduction of the ability to smell, or what we call the anosmia or hyposmia respectively. Okay, so it can be secondary to either a traumatic damage to the ethmoid bone, for example, a vehicular accident causing head injury. Okay, so actually, these olfactory neurons are known to be replaced regularly. Okay, kaya nga 'di ba, kahit na paulit-ulit tayong, for example, a very distinct smell, okay, hindi tayo nagkakaroon ng anosmia or hypoxemia, or for example, toxic fumes secondary to a fire, okay, babalik at babalik pa rin yung pangamoy natin. Okay, it is because nagre-regenerate this olfactory neurons. Okay? So mostly, of course, like what I've mentioned, will be damage to the olfactory nerve axons located at your ethmoid bone, specifically at the cribriform plate. Okay, also because of some toxins, there will also be changes in the lining epithelium, and we call that metaplasia. Any change in the lining epithelium is called metaplasia in any part of the body. Okay, so there will be immobilization of the cilia. Okay, kaya nga 'di ba yung mga smokers natin tends to sneeze also. And yung mga substance abusers, kapag nag-sniff sila ng, hindi ko alam kung anong type ng drug yung in-sniff. Okay, so ang tendency is madalas silang parang nagkakamot ng ilong because of the irritation. Then eventually, magpa-flatten yung cilia na yon. Okay, so it will destroy the cilia. Okay? So the chronic presence or accumulation of toxins like in your heavy cigarette smoking or industrial air pollution will eventually immobilize this cilia of the lining epithelium of our nasal cavity. Okay, so after the nasal cavity, we talk about the paranasal sinuses, which are bilateral cavities in the frontal, as you can see here, the maxillary, and the sphenoid, as well as the ethmoid bones of the skull. Okay, sorry, unstable na naman. Sorry ha. Okay, am I still good, class?
Yes po, Doc.
Yes po, Doc.
Okay. So the paranasal sinuses will communicate with the nasal cavities through small openings. Okay, so the mucus produced there is moved into the nasal passages, of course, again, by the activity of the ciliated cells. Okay? So what happens kapag merong inflammation? Okay, we call that actually the sinusitis as the clinical correlation for your paranasal sinuses. Okay, it is an inflammatory process of the sinuses that may persist for long periods of time, and eventually there will also be obstruction of the drainage. Kaya di ba kapag may sinusitis tayo, we also tend to have headache, particularly frontal headache, because of the congestion of these sinuses, causing pressure and eventually headache. Okay? So the paranasal sinuses is also lined by a thinner respiratory epithelium with fewer goblet cells. Okay, next we have your nasopharynx. Okay, the nasopharynx is again lined by your respiratory epithelium. Okay, the mucosa contains the medial pharyngeal tonsils and bilateral openings into the auditory tubes connected to each middle ear cavity. Okay, so as you can see in this picture, we have the nasal cavity and then the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. Okay, you might ask, until where kapag ka nagko-COVID swab tayo, of course, nasopharynx lang tayo. Kaya nga nasopharyngeal swab ang tawag. Up to this level lang, into the inferior turbinates. Okay? So that is your nasopharynx. Next would be the larynx, as you have seen in the picture a while ago. The larynx also contains, it is about 4 by 4 centimeters. It is the passage of air from the pharynx to the trachea. Okay, so it is rigid because it contains different cartilages. The hyaline cartilage for your thyroid, cricoid, and inferior arytenoid, and your elastic cartilage for your epiglottis, your corniculate, and the superior arytenoid cartilages. Okay, so all of these cartilages are actually connected by ligaments. Okay, so in addition to being a conducting portion of the respiratory tract, it is also necessary for the production of sounds during phonation. Okay, so epiglottis is actually not part of the conducting portion, but it is included in the anatomy because it is very important. Okay, why is it important? Because it serves to prevent swallowed food or fluid from entering the respiratory tract. Okay, so as you can see here, para siyang flap. Okay, so that is the function of the epiglottis. So we talk about the epiglottis also. Okay, so the basic tissue of this organ is actually elastic cartilage. Okay, it is covered with a mucous coat and it is divided into an upper or lingual surface by a stratified squamous epithelium, and also it transitions to a respiratory epithelium into the laryngeal surface because of course it connects into the larynx. Okay, it also contains your mixed mucous and serous glands, which are usually seen at the lamina propria, of course, beneath the respiratory epithelium. Okay, so again, another picture, microscopic picture of your epiglottis. You know that this is epiglottis because of the presence of the elastic cartilage. Okay, so superior or anterior portion or anterior surface is lined by your stratified squamous epithelium, and then eventually it will transition to become your respiratory epithelium. Okay, at the inferior portion or the posterior portion. Okay, so let's now focus again on the conducting portion, which includes, of course, your larynx. Okay, the larynx is the passage of air between the pharynx and the trachea. So movement also of these cartilages, like what I have shown you a while ago, together with the muscles, will participate in the sound production during phonation. Okay, so microscopically, ano ba ang itsura ng ating larynx? Okay, so below the epiglottis and the laryngeal vestibule, the mucosa will project into the lumen bilaterally, okay, which is actually will be separated by spaces, and we call that your ventricles. Okay, so it will be divided into upper and lower pair. The upper folds, as you can see here, is actually immovable vestibular folds, okay, which is lined by your respiratory epithelium. The lower pair, as you can see here, are the vocal folds or vocal cords, which is very important for sound production. Okay, so let's talk about the upper pair first. Okay, we have the serous mucous glands and we have here the laryngeal vestibule. So ito yung ating upper pair. Okay, it contains your seromucous glands and areolar tissues or lymph nodules covered by respiratory epithelium. Okay, so in between the upper and lower pair, we also have your ventricles, as I have mentioned a while ago. Okay, separated by your ventricles. Okay, and then eventually to your vocal cords or vocal folds, the lower pair, as you can see here. Okay, so like what I've mentioned, it's very, very important for the production of different sounds. Okay, so together with the muscles, okay, together with the ligaments, the inspired air, okay, the length of your vocal cords, nagmamatter yon for the tone of your voice. Kaya nga ang mga lalaki, mas deeper yung voice because they have longer vocal cords. Okay? So the false, looking into the higher magnification of the false vocal cords, as you can see, there will be a transition between true and false vocal cords. So the lining epithelium is pseudostratified, columnar, ciliated with goblet cells. Okay, you know that you are at the false vocal cords pagdating ng exam when you see the seromucous glands, as you can see here. These are important for the lubrication of the true vocal cords. Okay, looking at the true vocal cords or the lower pair, it is covered by a stratified squamous epithelium, which will protect the mucosa from abrasion and desiccation from rapid air movement. Okay, so it contains your dense regular bundle of elastic connective tissue, the vocal ligament, which will support the free edge of the vocal cord. Okay, so it has no glands as opposed to your false vocal cords and lined by your stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Okay, this is necessary for regeneration and mitosis in presence of injury. Okay, so again, no submucosa and no goblet cells for your true vocal cords. Okay, now what would be the clinical correlations when we talk about the larynx? Okay, we have two, the polyp and the nodules. Okay, so acute trauma or chronic irritation causes changes in the vocal cords that can either lead to polyp or nodules. So how are you going to differentiate one from the other? Kapag ka-polyp, it is usually acute trauma secondary to a gastroesophageal reflux or yung may mga ulcers, okay, untreated hypothyroid state, chronic laryngeal allergic reactions, or even chronic inhalations of irritants, okay, like your smoking, okay? The nodules, on the other hand, are secondary to chronic trauma. Yung mga singer, okay, or yung mga professors, teachers, madalas silang magka-nodules because of frequent voice use. Kaya ang usually management lang dyan will be voice rest, okay, or behavioral modifications. Another differentiating factor for this polyp and nodules will be the bilaterality, okay? Polyp will be unilateral and the nodules will be bilateral, okay? Okay, class? So this one is a laparoscopic picture of your polyp versus the nodules. Mas malaki ang polyp compared sa nodules. Okay? So last structure to talk about will be the trachea. Okay? We have seen this picture already for the other topics that we have discussed. Favorite yan, trachea and liver, always pinapakita. Okay, so trachea is for air passage. Okay, it's about 10 to 12 centimeter long and it is being lined by your typical respiratory epithelium. It contains lamina propria, which has seromucous glands to produce watery mucus, of course. Okay, so it is actually a series of C structure. If you will look at it on a scanner view, para siyang mga rings of cartilages, which is actually against the esophagus. Okay, it is bridged, though dito hindi kita, by a smooth muscle we call the trachealis muscle. Okay, and a fibroelastic tissue attached to the perichondrium. Okay, so when you look at the perichondrium, you will be able to differentiate that it is a trachea because of the presence of hyaline cartilage with chondrocytes within the lacuna. Okay, so the entire organ is supported by your tunica adventitia. Okay, so Dr. Biloria will be handling the laboratory part of this upper respiratory tract laboratory. Okay, so in this picture, you'll be able to appreciate the trachealis muscle. As you can see, para siyang letter C. Okay? So the trachealis muscle in particular is important during swallowing, okay, to facilitate the passage of food, to allow the esophagus to bulge into the lumen of the trachea. So this is important to prevent aspiration. Okay? So also during cupping reflex, the muscle will strongly contract. This is again to prevent passage of food into the respiratory system. Okay, so it's all important to prevent aspiration. Okay, so in this picture onto your right side, you'll be able to appreciate the respiratory epithelium, the lamina propria, okay, and then the muscles also. Okay, so this one is the different topics or structures that we have talked about. Okay, the lining epithelium as well as the lamina propria. Okay, don't worry, I'll just be getting my questions in the PowerPoint. Okay, another table that I got from Hunkera differentiating the different regions of your conducting portion except the bronchi and bronchioles together with the lining epithelium, the glands present, the musculoskeletal support, and the major functions. Okay, so I think that would be all for this respiratory, or sorry, the conducting portion. Okay, so unless you have questions, do you have questions?